Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a world that really feels like it's on the edge. A world where the old rulebook for how countries deal with each other is basically being torn up. We're talking about a fundamental rupture in the international order and what that actually means for all of us.
So let's just jump right in with this, a pretty stark warning from Ukrainian President Zelensky. He basically told world leaders to stop trying to convince him he will not. Wow. I mean, those words really cut to the core of what's happening, right? It feels like we're moving into a time where talking things out, diplomacy is being pushed aside for brute force and backroom deals. The old art of persuasion, it seems to be breaking down completely.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this in this explainer. Think of it like an hourglass. We're going to start wide, looking at these huge global power moves. Then we'll zoom in really tight to see the very real human impact of all this. And then we'll pull back out to see how the world is starting to react.
All right, first up, a world for sale. In that title, it isn't really an exaggeration. We're going to look at a couple of moves on the global stage that are just so audacious, it's like they've slapped a for sale sign on the very idea of a country. The entire international order is being treated less like a system of laws and more like a high-stakes auction.
First, there's the whole Greenland situation. President Trump has been absolutely resolute about trying to acquire it. Now, just think about that. A NATO ally, Denmark, felt so threatened by this that they actually ordered their troops to be combat ready. And it didn't stop there. The UK apparently got threatened with a 10% tariff if they even thought about offering Denmark military support. I mean, this is not your grandfather's diplomacy. This is something else entirely.
And this really is the takeaway, isn't it? The leader of the free world treating global sovereignty like a game of Monopoly. It's like the fundamental rulebook of how countries are supposed to interact is just being tossed out the window. And when another nation's territory is treated like a piece on a game board, well, that changes everything.
But it's not just about ignoring the old system. It's about trying to build a new one right alongside it. So on one side, you've got the old guard, the UN Security Council, built on ideas like international law. But on the other side, you've got this proposal for a board of peace, which sounds less like a global institution and more like a private club. Membership isn't about being a world power, it's about personal loyalty and business deals. And just look at the proposed invite list. Putin, Xi Jinping, Tony Blair, it's a very different kind of party.
So what's the entry fee for this exclusive new club? $1 billion. Yeah, that's the reported price tag. This isn't just some fantasy project, it's a blueprint for a new world order where your seat at the table might literally have a price.
Okay, so we've been talking about these huge global chess moves. But what happens when that kind of thinking comes home, when it hits the streets? We're narrowing that hourglass now to look at the human cost, and it is truly terrifying.
This happened in Minneapolis. During what was described as the largest ever immigration enforcement operation, masked federal agents shot and killed a 37-year-old U.S. citizen. His name was Alex Preedy. He was an ICU nurse, and he was killed in his own community.
And the official justification for this? Well, this is where it gets really chilling. According to the policy's architect, Stephen Miller, these agents have federal immunity. Now, think about what that really means. It suggests they operate outside the bounds of local law, beyond accountability from the very communities they're policing. Which brings us to this really heavy idea, unevenly distributed authoritarianism. It's a mouthful, but what it means is simple and scary. It's when the raw power of the state, the jackboots and the suspension of rights, becomes a tool of domestic policy, but only for some people, in some places. For them, it stops being a metaphor and becomes very, very real.
So when that kind of fear and uncertainty takes hold, what happens? Well, people start looking for an exit. And what we're seeing now is something pretty historic, a great American exodus. Americans are now seeking refuge abroad in numbers we've never seen before.
And the numbers don't lie. Just look at this. It's been dubbed the Donald Dash to just one country, Ireland. That's a 25% jump in U.S. passport applications in a single year to over 40,000. That's not a blip, that's a trend. It's a massive signal that people are actively looking for an escape route.
And it's worth asking, who are these people? Well, it's not just one group. You've got academics who are worried about threats to academic freedom. You have wealthy retirees cashing out everything they've ever worked for. You have transgender families who are terrified of what they call escalating legislative attacks. And maybe most shockingly of all, the number of U.S. citizens formally seeking asylum in Ireland hit a record high of 94. I mean, this is a full-on brain drain and capital flight happening at the same time.
And this quote, it just says it all, doesn't it?
When Americans are begging for protection from an Irish court, the American dream has officially moved. Wow, it really captures this profound shift that the very promise America was supposed to represent is now, for some, being sought somewhere else.
Okay, so now we're going to zoom back out with our hourglass. We've seen the global moves and the heartbreaking human cost. So how is the rest of the world reacting? Specifically, America's oldest allies. Let's just say they are not taking this lying down. What we're seeing is Europe starting to build a unified resistance. First, leaders are being told to find a spine, to stop appeasing and start pushing back. Then, the massive EU-US trade deal, it's been put on hold. France is threatening to pull out what they're calling an economic bazooka, an anti-coercion tool they've literally never used before. And even Ireland is pouring 200 billion euros into infrastructure to basically build an economic shield.
So the big takeaway here is that Europe is choosing resilience over subordination. And the real irony in all of this, all these attempts to divide and bully allies might have completely backfired. It could be accidentally forging a stronger, more independent Europe that's finally ready to stand on its own 2 feet.
So you take it all together, the attempts to buy countries, the fear on the streets at home, and now this massive pushback from allies. It all boils down to one final, huge question. And that question is this: is all this chaos, this rupture, actually creating a stronger, more unified opposition? Or is the whole international system just buckling under the pressure? Is it breaking, or is it getting stronger in response? Honestly, that might be the biggest question we face right now. Thanks for digging into it with us.